This episode is sponsored by Micro Focus and the LoadRunner Solutions family. That includes LoadRunner Professional, Enterprise, Cloud, and Developer. You know, performance matters. Did you know that LoadRunner Solutions have the largest community of practitioners in the world? Join that community at community.microfocus.com, scan the QR code, and check out the LoadRunner family page on performance engineering, as well as their YouTube playlist that we've got links for in the show notes on smcjournal.com as well as YouTube. Hey everybody, this is Scott Moore and you're watching the SMC Journal podcast, the show that's all about performance, observability, security, non-functional requirements, operational requirements, and much, much more. Basically systems engineering in today's modern IT. You probably noticed, if you've ever seen the show before, that I've got a little bit different background, not as colorful today, and that's because as I record this show, I'm actually on the road for my other show, The Performance Tour. But as they say, the show must go on, and we still need to be talking about things for this podcast. Today, I wanted to take a few minutes to look at where we are at in terms of observability platforms and their use of generative AI, specifically ChatGPT. So I've been following this since ChatGPT became sort of a household word starting in the January-February timeframe, and we've seen tons of articles coming out on LinkedIn, startups. There's all new applications that are using generative AI. It seems like there's about 100 a day that are now coming out. And we're filming this in the very beginning of June 2023. So I want to take a look at from February, March, all the way in through the end of May, look at some of the press releases that we've seen about observability and its use of generative AI. And I've had a lot of people actually write to me and say, Scott, where are we actually at? And can you put your analyst hat on and kind of tell me what you're seeing in the world of observability and the use of AI? So that's what we're going to do today, is go through several of the press releases and the major vendors. What are we seeing? What are we not seeing? And then what conclusions can we come to that? So let's go right into some of the articles that I've been reviewing. So one of the first observability companies to have some kind of a press release or any kind of news where they've integrated OpenAI, ChatGPT, or any kind of generative AI was New Relic. That's the first one that came up on my radar. This was in March of 2023, where they announced the OpenAI Quick Start for New Relic. And the buzz around ChatGPT was getting a lot of attention starting in January and February. And then when Microsoft invested the $10 billion into them, it became sort of like, okay, we've got to figure out how to integrate this into our tool as fast as possible. And New Relic was the first one to begin talking about this. And you can see that their chief growth officer for New Relic said that observability is a game changer, helping companies extract value for GPT-4. We're making it so that any engineer can easily monitor their cost and performance with easy setup and at no cost. They don't really go into what that quick start actually means and what it does, but we have seen other articles come out since then. The next article comes from also SiliconANGLE as well. And this is kind of following up on that a little bit later. This was actually an article released in May of 2023, and it references this first article that I just showed you. This was the announcement of Grok in a limited preview for the next version of New Relic. And it's basically a chat bot. So you would be able to query through this Grok chat interface things that you want to look for, where you don't have to learn some complicated SQL query or some other specific language to get the information that you need to either create a custom dashboard or find out, okay, what are the data points around this thing. You're trying to find it out so that I guess mere humans can actually interface with observability. And this is going to be a no-cost add-in to them. And it says here in the article that with just 2 lines of code, users can generate a simple dashboard with GPT-4 performance metrics. And its capabilities include real-time cost tracking, plus metrics such as average response times and other performance metrics around GPT-4 requests that helps teams to use services more efficiently. So it's how to get data out of an observability package easier. This final New Relic article is also about Grok, but it's listed as a generative AI assistant to monitor software performance. So it says here that how does Grok help, basically? So it's talking about that observability is critical to business running their software and delivering performance and results, but the current approach largely relies on engineering teams sifting through mountains of siloed telemetry data. So that is a common problem within all of the observability packages because there is so much data that is being gathered, and this takes time. So the race right now in observability is to find that data point that's going to lead you to root cause as fast as possible, and that's the observability company that's going to win the day. So this is saying that Grok uses OpenAI's large language models, and it is trying to make it easier so that people can simply ask for root causes, any question on their mind, like why is my shopping cart slow, and it will begin to give you that answer through this Grok interface. Honeycomb also came out in May with their generative AI query tool for its observability platform. So instead of, I guess, a chat, you'll actually be able to see in this article as I scroll down, maybe it's the next article, it actually shows you a little motion video of how this works. But it says here that Honeycomb debuted a new artificial intelligence tools that helps developers easily understand and troubleshoot application errors, and it's called the Query Assistant. And this is powered by generative AI software OpenAI, and it will be available as far as the general availability, I guess, is out now, and it will complement a number of other existing features. They recently had some investment into Honeycomb, $148 million, and this is one of the first releases after that, press releases, where Honeycomb is talking about, I guess, how they're spending that money and how they're doing this. But again, Query Assistant is basically trying to make it easier for people to query into all of that data that's available in the platform and get the information back and to the point, getting to the root cause as fast as possible. This is devops.com with their version of this news, and it just basically says the same thing. So we will make sure that you have all these links on the show notes, but I wanted to just point out that this was a big deal when Honeycomb announced this. So we have New Relic, Honeycomb. The next one I want to show you is not specific to performance and getting performance measurements out of this, but Elastic is in the observability game now. They have Elastic APM, which I'm not sure if they renamed that yet, but their Elasticsearch, they now have a relevance engine that will fuel generative AI models. This was released in late May, so this is fairly recent news. And this new tool is dubbed ESRE. And it is to help transformations, was what they call that in Elastic language. And it's basically how you transform that data and then how you visualize that data. But it says that ESRE will enable businesses to develop highly specialized models trained on their own structured and unstructured proprietary data. The chief executive said generative AI is a revolutionary moment in technology, and that companies that get it right fast are tomorrow's leaders. Our Elasticsearch relevance engine is available today, and we've done the hard work of making it easier for companies to do generative AI right. So there's this race here to say we have generative AI included in our product, and it's now easy for you to get the information or build your own data points as fast as possible. So I expect to see this engine go into across all of their products for Elastic, including the APM product, and being able to use the profiling data, the log data, all of that together to get this information fast through these human-like queries. And next we have Dynatrace. Dynatrace was not far behind New Relic. In late February, we had Dynatrace saying they blend AI, automation, and observability. Now remember, Dynatrace has always had Davis for the last several years, and I think all they're really doing now is taking their platform and strengthening it with generative AI, but they have had some level of what they call AI in Davis, but now they have this thing called causal AI. And this causal AI is basically how do we get to root cause faster. So they also list in this article that observability is hard. In a complex environment, observability tools must collect and consolidate data from multiple data sources at an often massive scale. So this is a huge problem across the industry, is pulling so much data and making sense of it. And I think generative AI is one of those tools we're going to be using going forward to figure out how to get what we need out of that data, and maybe reducing the amount of data that we have to gather to make conclusions about what's wrong with our systems, including performance problems. This is a blog by Dynatrace themselves on the Dynatrace.com website, and this was published just a few weeks ago in May, and it's talking about the path to achieving better productivity using generative AI. And basically, the author goes through this and mentions that at Dynatrace, we've been exploring many ways of using ChatGPT to accelerate our innovation on behalf of our customers and get productivity. At the Perform conference in February, we demonstrated how people can use natural or human language to query our data lakehouse. You remember we talked about this data lakehouse on a previous episode of our podcast, and this is now how to use a human-like query, as we've seen in these other tools, New Relic and Honeycomb, to get what you need out of this data in an easier way. So we've seen these measures. Now I gotta include this additional link here for Datadog, but this did not, when I clicked on this link, it didn't go where I thought it was gonna go. The headline says, Datadog integrates with OpenAI. And so you're thinking, okay, well now Datadog is gonna have this easy query language as well, but that's not what's happening here. It's to help organizations monitor their usage of generative AI. So it's actually creating a new monitor in Datadog that's helping companies figure out how much their company is actually using ChatGPT and generative AI, because there's, number one, there is a cost involved now with the premium versions of ChatGPT, and there is a security issue because several companies have had employees feeding information into these language models, and it's finding out information about the company that it probably shouldn't know, and then repeating it back to other people who are doing other queries. And so this monitor is available now in Datadog to understand usage, optimize your performance, tracking error rates, rate limits, etc., the cost, and in addition to covering the GPT family of large language models, Datadog's integration enables organizations to track performance, cost, and use of other OpenAI models, Ada, Babbage, Curie, DaVinci. I'm not familiar with those, but maybe you are. So to me though, okay, it's great, Datadog, that you've created an additional monitor, but this is sort of a, hey, me too. This was released in May, so they're trying to say, hey, we've got something going on with OpenAI too, guys. But they're probably, and if anything is released after June 1st, it wouldn't be included in what I'm talking about. So this actual video was made in very early June. So anything that happens after June 1st, 2023, with any of the press releases from observability companies, I wouldn't have access to. But based on what I see now, Datadog is a little bit late to the game. And all of the things we're seeing with generative AI are just basically human queries into this. But does that mean that Datadog isn't fiercely working on their own query solution for this? Not at all. I would assume that they would be. We haven't heard from Splunk and some of the other players yet, but believe me, they have engineers working night and day to try to bring something like this to their product, because they do not want to be left out of this, because I think this is a big deal. So there you have it. In summary, what we're seeing is New Relic, Honeycomb, and Dynatrace being sort of the leaders in the utilization of this. Datadog kind of trying to create a new monitor, but nice try. We're going to wait on your generative AI query language parser as well. I'm sure that that's on the way. I look for other platforms to be talking about this in the near future. What do you think about this? Where do you think we're at? I mean, obviously, I'm looking for the day when we're actually doing true AI, where we don't even have to query for this. We can actually have AI create these metrics and data points, dashboards that we need to see, tell us what was wrong, tell us that it fixed it, and keep everything as optimized as possible all the time. We're not able to trust any kind of technology to do that yet, so don't get so excited that, or don't get upset that you're thinking you might lose your job over the use of this technology. This is really basically taking a language model and figuring out how to make it easier to get data out of this complex ecosystem we call an observability package. So I hope that puts you at ease, and we'll be looking for more press releases to be coming out over the next several months. And of course, we'll follow up with this and post any information we find out on the show for you. Thank you for watching the SMC Journal. Would love to hear from you. You can reach me very easily on most social media platforms. And if you want to just send me an email, you can do so at heyscott@smcjournal.com. For this episode of the podcast, Scott Moore saying thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.